And this is even more apparent when you consider the fact that there are 9 rivers that span Mexico, the United States and Canada that are measured not in the hundreds of miles, but the thousands. Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to rivers, not to be confused with Joan. And when you think about it, rivers are an appropriate subject for this very channel, because what could be more lost in the pond than the Hudson River? The Titanic. But having lived extensively in both countries, I've arrived at an important truth. British rivers ain't got nothing on America. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that British rivers are somehow inferior to American ones. I just mean that pound for pound, they're not quite as large. And of course, that makes sense. The United States is a significantly bigger country than Britain. But it's by doing videos like this that I can really begin to paint a picture, in this case, in the style of Bob Ross, of just how much bigger America is. So don't get me wrong, I love British rivers, right? I grew up a stone's throw from the River Freshney.
Loads of in that river.
I once lived 20 minutes from the River Thames, and I used to spend my university days traversing the Lancaster Canal, which I've just realised is a canal and not a river, but you get the picture. The point is, British rivers ain't got nothing on their American counterparts, and here's why. Those of you who've watched this channel before will know that I tend to be quite deep. But today we're going to go even deeper into a river or two, metaphorically. Now, I don't know about you, but I haven't spent a lot of time in life giving thought to the depths of rivers. For me, for the most part, rivers are just there for me to walk along, or over, or occasionally to hide my bits and bobs if I've had too much tequila. But all that aside, what are the deepest rivers in both Britain and America? Well, I can tell you that in Britain, it's the River Thames, which is to say that the deepest point of the River Thames is deeper than the deepest point of any river in Britain, and that's deep. And even though we should take into account the fact that the water level of rivers rises and falls, we can approximate that the deepest point in London's River Thames is about 66 feet. To put that into a perspective we can all understand, that's about 11 Nicolas Cages. But on the other side of the pond there are several rivers where things get even deeper. Chief among these is the Hudson, which is said to reach a depth of 216 feet, or about 36 Nicolas Cages. So it's a good job that Captain Sullenberger was so skilled, otherwise they would have had to send in James Cameron to look for the wreckage. Now, it's believed that America's next deepest river is one you may have heard of, the Mississippi. And that brings us on to this. You may have noticed after years of living on Earth that many rivers get to that point in life where they just let themselves go. They start out all thin and slender until one day they find themselves turning into the sea. And evidence suggests that rivers don't like this, because the closer to the sea they get, the wider they become due to all the stress eating. And this is most notably true of the River Thames, known around the world for winding its way past the Houses of Parliament all the way through to Tower Bridge. Its widest point is much further east around the area of Southend-on-Sea, where it takes in an impressive width of 5 miles, and I've no idea how many Nicolas Cages that is. Can we find out? 4,400 Nicolas Cages. And instinctively I was surprised to find this, because when I think of rivers, I expect to be able to throw a rock to the other side, something admittedly I have stopped since the greenhouse incident of 1992. So the fact that the Thames gets so wide that even the police wouldn't have been able to identify me is surprising, and yet it ain't got nothing on America's most famous river. While the majority of the Mississippi River doesn't come close to having a 5-mile width, it does have a tendency to bulk up once it reaches the state of Minnesota, but then we've all done that. Winter clothes. What I mean is, it had whipped out the party tricks. Clearly somebody had told the Mississippi that, ooh, Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes. If you want to curry favor with the state, then you're going to have to find a way to appeal to this very fact. And it did. Every now and then the Mississippi River, just because it can, turns into a lake. And the most extravagant example of this can be found at Lake Winnebagoish, where the Mississippi River expands to a width of 11 miles. Martin, how many is that? 9,680 Nicolas Cages. For context, that's more than the amount of people that saw 2019's Running with the Devil. And if you think that's insane, let's take a look at this. When it comes to rivers, Britain and America have something in common. Their most well-known rivers, the Thames and the Mississippi, are only their second longest. Now I say that with a caveat because the foremost expert on all things London, my brother, has written extensively on how the positioning of the source of the River Thames is disputed. But for now, let's go with the more widely accepted answer, the River Severn. Flowing through both Wales and England before getting lost in the pond via the Bristol Channel. The River Severn has the distinction of being shaped like the number 7, if you're somebody who can't write very well. But it also has the distinction of being 193,600 Nicolas cages long. That's 220 miles. And even though riding the full length of it would mean you'd have to read the word gondola in 2 separate languages, it ain't got nothing on the rivers of North America. And this is even more apparent when you consider the fact that there are 9 rivers that span Mexico, the United States and Canada that are measured not in the hundreds of miles, but the thousands. That's right, the Snake River, Red River, Columbia River, Arkansas River, Colorado River, Rio Grande, Yukon River and Mississippi River are at least twice the length of Britain. But ominously, like I said before, the Mississippi River is not the longest in the United States. Though it is adjoined to it, the longest river in the United States is the Missouri River. Rising in the Rocky Mountains of western Montana, the Missouri River flows its juices all the way down to St. Louis, where it enters the Mississippi. In doing so, it stretches an incredible, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, 2,341 miles. Not only is that, Martin, 12.3 million Nicolas cages, it's almost 4 times the length of Britain. And actually, I've only just realised while filming this, you could get all the way from Montana to Britain in just a rowing boat, in theory. I should probably start weightlifting in case somebody starts a GoFundMe. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below your favourite river in the world. Doesn't have to be Britain or America. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. And a big shout out to all of my patrons who make these videos possible. If you would like to become a patron of Lost in the Pond, you can do so at patreon.com/lostinthepond. Until the next video, goodbye.